Ayana lived in the far edge of the desert settlement, where the land opened into wide, empty plains. Every morning she woke before the sun, long before anyone else was awake. She stepped outside her small home and felt the cool air on her skin. For a moment she breathed slowly, as if preparing herself for another long day. Her life had become a pattern, quiet, steady, and without change. She cared for her elderly mother, helped her relatives, and did every small job that needed to be done around the place. 20 years had passed this way, each day following the next, and still she walked through them alone. She was not lonely by choice. There had been a time when her life was full of hope. When she was young, she had been promised to a man she cherished. Their families had agreed, and the settlement expected their marriage. But before their wedding day came, sickness took him. In a single season, her world shifted. She lost him, and with him, she lost the future she had imagined. People tried to comfort her, but slowly they stopped trying. Time moved on. People began to whisper that maybe she wished to stay alone. Some even said she carried sadness like a shadow, which made men uneasy. Others believed approaching her might bring misfortune. Word spread, and after a while no man tried at all. Ayana heard the whispers. She always heard them, even when people spoke gently or tried to hide their voices. But she grew used to it and told herself she didn't need anyone. She worked harder, spoke less, and taught her heart to stay quiet. One warm afternoon, as the sun rested high above the desert, a supply wagon arrived. It was pulled by 2 strong horses and covered with canvas. People walked out to greet the driver, a calm cowboy named Samuel. His face carried the dust of long travel, but his eyes were warm and observant. He had come to bring tools, cloth, medicine, and other goods the settlement needed. Everyone welcomed him because he was known for honest work and fair prices. Ayana watched from a distance at first. She stood outside her home, repairing a broken water pot. She told herself she had no reason to pay attention to him, yet something about the way he greeted the elders caught her eye. He bowed his head respectfully, listened carefully, and never raised his voice. He worked with steady hands, and each time someone asked him for help, he agreed without hesitation. Samuel noticed her too, though she did not see it. While handing supplies to a family, he asked quietly, "Who is that woman working alone near the edge of the houses?" The elder beside him replied with soft pride, "That is Ayana, a strong heart, hard-working, gentle, and always alone." Samuel nodded without judgment. Something in the way she moved, quiet but determined, made him curious. He watched her as she lifted heavy pots and carried them into her home. There was no bitterness in her face, only a calm, steady strength. Later that day, when the sun began sinking into the west, Ayana walked to the well to fill buckets of water. Samuel stood there too, helping 2 young boys fix a loose rope. Ayana tried to avoid him. She quietly set her buckets near the well, intending to finish quickly and return home. But the rope snapped again, causing one of the boys to stumble. Ayana stepped forward without thinking and caught the bucket before it spilled. Samuel looked at her, surprised but grateful. "Thank you," he said softly. Ayana only gave a polite nod. She tried to step away, but Samuel spoke again, this time with a gentle smile. "You have good reflexes." She wasn't used to light conversation with strangers. Her voice came out low but clear. "I work here every day. You learn fast when you must." Samuel noticed her hands, rough from work, yet graceful. He saw the calmness in her eyes, a calmness formed from years of carrying burdens alone. He didn't stare too long, but felt a small pull inside him, a curiosity he couldn't explain. Ayana finished filling her buckets and lifted them, 1 in each hand. Samuel moved aside to give her space, but she still avoided meeting his gaze. She walked away quickly, the bucket swinging rhythmically, her steps steady. She could feel his eyes on her for a moment, and it made her heart beat faster. She did not like that feeling. She told herself it meant nothing. That evening, Ayanna sat with her mother, preparing a simple meal. Her mother, wise despite her age, noticed the small distraction on her daughter's face. "You saw someone new today," her mother said gently. Ayanna paused. "He was only helping with supplies." Her mother smiled with understanding. "Your eyes have been quiet for many years. Today they look a little different." Ayanna looked down at her hands. "It is nothing, Mother. He is only passing through." Her mother did not argue. She knew her daughter's heart needed time. The next morning, Samuel walked across the settlement carrying a set of tools. He planned to help a family with their broken fence. As he passed Ayanna's home, he saw her sweeping the ground. She didn't look up, but she sensed his presence. He gave a polite greeting. "Good morning?" Ayanna hesitated before responding. "Morning." She continued sweeping, but the steady rhythm of her strokes had changed. Her heartbeat was louder now, and she felt nervous for reasons she couldn't understand. Samuel walked on, though a part of him wished she would say more. Throughout the week, Samuel worked all around the settlement. He fixed the well rope, repaired broken door hinges, and helped gather dry wood. Each time he passed Ayanna's home, he wondered if he might see her again. She always appeared busy, carrying baskets, tending to her mother, or cleaning tools. She never stayed idle. Samuel admired that about her. One afternoon, while Ayanna chopped wood behind her home, the axe slipped and cut her hand. It wasn't deep, but it stung sharply. She hissed under her breath and grabbed her wrist, trying to stop the bleeding. Samuel, who had been walking nearby, rushed toward her. "Are you all right?" he asked with real concern. She tried to hide her hand. "It's nothing." "Let me see," he said gently. Ayanna froze. It had been 20 years since a man touched her hand. She wanted to pull away, but the pain made her stay still. Samuel held her hand softly, his touch careful and respectful. He tore a clean cloth from his pack and wrapped her wound with slow, steady movements. "You work too much alone," he said quietly. Ayanna felt her chest tighten. "I must." He looked at her, not with pity, but with understanding. "Even the strongest hearts need rest." His words felt like a warm wind brushing across a cold stone. For a moment, she let herself breathe differently. She didn't speak, but Samuel saw the emotion in her eyes, old, heavy, and hidden for far too long. When he finished bandaging her hand, he stepped back. "If you ever need help, I'll be around." Ayanna finally whispered, "Thank you," and Samuel felt those two simple words settle deeply in his heart. That evening, while the desert sky turned orange and gold, Ayanna sat outside, staring at her wrapped hand. She could still feel the warmth of Samuel's touch. She hated that it affected her, yet she could not ignore it. Something was stirring inside her, something she had tried to bury for 20 long years. Samuel, standing near his wagon, looked across the settlement. He saw her sitting alone, her figure calm and still under the fading light. He didn't know her story yet, but he felt drawn to her quiet strength. He sensed there was something inside her waiting to be understood, something she had protected for years. And though neither of them knew it yet, that small moment by the chopping block marked the beginning of a change neither had expected, a change that would slowly reshape both of their lives. Samuel stayed in the settlement longer than he first planned. He had expected to unload his supplies, help with a few small repairs, and then continue his journey to the next town. But something about this place made him slow down. The people were kind, the land was peaceful, and there was a quiet strength in the air. And without admitting it to himself, he found his thoughts returning again and again to Ayanna. The settlement elders appreciated his help. They were older, and many daily tasks had become difficult for them. So when Samuel offered to repair fences, fix squeaky doors, and strengthen the roofs before the next sandstorm season, they welcomed him with warm smiles. He worked with steady hands every day, and every day he found himself glancing toward the edge of the houses, hoping to catch sight of Ayanna. Ayanna tried to avoid him just as she had always avoided men, not because she disliked him, but because she didn't know how to deal with the emotions he awakened inside her. She felt unsure, almost frightened, not by Samuel himself, but by the unfamiliar feeling of someone noticing her after so many years of being invisible. One late afternoon, Samuel was repairing a broken fence near the outer field. While hammering new wooden planks into place, he saw two young boys chasing each other and laughing. They ran past him, kicking dust into the air. One of the boys stopped suddenly and pointed toward Ayanna, who was carrying heavy baskets of dried corn to her home. "Why does she always work alone?" the boy asked his friend loudly. The friend shrugged. "Because she doesn't talk to anyone." Samuel paused. He looked toward Ayanna, noticing the small strain in her shoulders as she walked. She didn't react to the boy's words, but he knew she must have heard them. A part of him tightened inside. The more he saw her, the more he understood that her silence wasn't coldness. It was something deeper, something older. That evening, Samuel asked the elder named Nahele, a wise man who often sat by the fire, about Ayanna. He didn't want to sound curious for the wrong reasons, so he chose his words carefully. "Elder Nahele," he said softly, "I've seen the way Ayanna works. She carries herself with quiet strength. I hope I'm not being disrespectful, but has she always lived like this?" Nahele looked at him with knowing eyes. "You have noticed her." Samuel didn't deny it. "Yes, there is something about her. Something heavy." The elder nodded slowly. Her heart has carried a long story. Samuel sat down near the fire, listening quietly. Nahele took a deep breath before speaking again. Many years ago, when she was young, she was promised to a man from another part of the tribe. They cared for each other. Everyone expected their marriage. But before they could start their life together, sickness came. It swept through our lands and took many lives. Her promised one was among them. Samuel felt a hollow ache in his chest. "I'm sorry," Nahele continued. "After that, she changed. She did not complain. She worked harder than before. But her eyes lost their brightness. She said she would wait for time to heal her. But time was unkind. Men began to fear approaching her, as if her sadness might follow them too. Soon no one tried. Samuel understood now why she behaved the way she did. She has lived alone for 20 years? Yes, Nahele replied. 20 long years. She cares for her mother, helps others, and asks for nothing. She shows strength, but silence sits in her heart. Samuel felt a deep respect rise within him. He didn't feel pity. He felt admiration. Ayanna wasn't weak. She had survived grief without complaining. She had kept her responsibilities even when her heart felt empty. He realized there was something rare in her, something he had never seen in anyone else. The next morning, Ayanna was gathering stones near the small stream to reinforce the cooking hearth. She lifted one rock after another, trying to ignore the dull ache in her healing hand. She hoped Samuel would not come today. His presence confused her thoughts, and she didn't want him to see her struggling. But as fate would have it, Samuel was returning from the field with a bundle of wooden planks on his shoulder. When he saw her working alone with an injured hand, he hurried toward her. "Your hand is not ready for heavy work," he said gently. Ayanna shook her head. "It is fine. I must finish this before evening." Samuel set down his planks. Let me help." She stiffened. "You do not need to. I can manage." He smiled softly. "I know you can, but you don't need to do everything alone." Ayanna looked away, unsure how to answer. For 20 years, no one had spoken to her like that. Not with authority, not with pity, but with simple, genuine care. Samuel began picking up stones beside her. She tried to tell him she didn't need him there, but the words felt stuck in her throat. As they worked side by side, she felt her heartbeat rise. The silence between them was not uncomfortable this time. It felt warm, even peaceful. After a while, Samuel spoke softly. "The elders told me about your past." Ayanna's hands froze. Her voice came out low. "It is an old story. It does not matter anymore." Samuel shook his head gently. "It matters. It shaped you. It made you strong." Ayanna swallowed slowly, unsure if she believed him. "Most people think I am strange for living this way for so long." "I don't," Samuel replied. "I think you are brave." Ayanna's breath trembled slightly. No one had ever said that to her, not once in 20 years. She looked at him carefully, searching his face for any sign of mockery. But she found none. His eyes were honest, steady, and warm. Samuel noticed her hesitation and spoke more softly. "You lost someone you cared about. That kind of pain changes a person. But it doesn't mean you must carry it alone forever." Ayanna felt something in her chest loosen, as if a knot she had kept tied for years was finally weakening. The truth was, she was tired. Tired of silence. Tired of pretending everything was fine. Tired of convincing herself she didn't need anyone. For the first time, she allowed her voice to show a small crack. "I do not know how to let someone close again." Samuel's expression softened even more. "Then let it happen slowly, step by step, no rush." His calmness settled her heart. They continued gathering stones in gentle silence. Once they finished, Samuel helped her carry them back to her home. She didn't stop him. She didn't tell him to leave. For the first time, she accepted help without pushing it away. That evening, after her chores were done, Ayanna sat under the dim sky and thought about Samuel's words. She touched the bandage on her hand, remembering how carefully he had wrapped it. No man had held her hand in 20 years. His touch had awakened something she didn't know still lived inside her, a soft and trembling hope. Samuel, sitting near the fire with the elders, looked across the settlement. He saw Ayanna walking slowly, her mind deep in thought. He felt a strong desire to understand her more, to learn her story not from the elders, but from her own lips. He didn't know what would come next. He only knew that something had begun between them, quiet, fragile, but real. And for the first time in 20 years, Ayanna felt that someone truly saw her, not as a shadow of the past, but as a woman whose heart still had room for warmth. Ayanna woke the next morning feeling different from the days before. She could not understand it at first, but there was a small softness in her chest, like a warm ember that refused to fade. It was strange. She had lived with silence for so long that she forgot what it felt like to have someone's kindness sit gently on her heart. Samuel's calm words from the day before stayed with her all night, echoing quietly inside her thoughts. The settlement was peaceful that morning. Birds sat on roof edges, the sun rose slowly, and a warm breeze carried the soft scent of sagebrush across the land. Ayanna stepped outside with a wooden bowl in her hands, feeding the chickens. She tried to focus on her tasks, but her mind kept drifting back to Samuel. She wondered where he was working today, wondered if he would cross her path again, wondered why her heart seemed to move toward his presence, even when he wasn't near. Samuel, meanwhile, was repairing the roof of an old storehouse. He wiped the sweat from his forehead as he worked, but his thoughts were not on the tools or the wood. They were on Ayanna, her quiet strength, her gentle voice, and the sadness behind her eyes that made him want to understand her more. He had met many people in his life, but none had touched him the way she did. There was something peaceful, steady, and honest about her. Something that made him feel like he wanted to stay longer than he planned. Later in the day, Ayanna carried a basket of crushed herbs toward the drying racks near the hills. It was a quiet place, away from the main houses, where she often worked alone. But as she approached the small path, she saw Samuel walking toward her with a bundle of wooden stakes on his shoulder. The moment their eyes met, both of them paused as if caught in a small, unexpected moment of connection. Samuel smiled first. "Busy day again?" Ayanna nodded slowly, trying to steady her voice. "There is always something to do." He walked closer. "Let me help you carry that basket." Ayanna held it tighter. "It is not heavy." Samuel tilted his head with a small grin. "I know, but helping you feels like the right thing to do." She hesitated, then slowly allowed him to take the basket from her hands. They walked up the hill together side by side, in a quiet rhythm that felt strangely natural. The wind brushed gently against them, carrying the soft rustle of grass. Ayanna kept her gaze forward, but she felt the warmth of Samuel's presence like a steady heartbeat beside her. When they reached the drying racks, Ayanna knelt down and began spreading the herbs carefully. Samuel watched her for a moment before kneeling beside her to help. She glanced at him, almost startled. "You know how to dry herbs?" she asked. He shrugged lightly. "Not really. But I can follow your lead." Ayanna found herself smiling without meaning to. She explained how each herb needed sunlight, the right airflow, and time to dry properly. Samuel listened closely, asking questions not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wanted to understand her world. His interest made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. As the afternoon sun warmed the earth, the two of them worked quietly together. Slowly, the silence between them shifted. It no longer felt like a wall, but something soft and comfortable. Ayanna began to feel at ease near him, a feeling she had forgotten long ago. She found herself speaking more than she usually did. She told him about her childhood on the land, how she used to run across the plains with her cousins, how she learned to gather herbs from her grandmother, how she would sit on the hills to watch the sunrise every morning. Her voice carried a gentle nostalgia that Samuel listened to with deep interest. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush her. He simply let her speak, letting her memories surface like quiet streams. After a while, Samuel asked softly, "Do you still watch the sunrise from your favorite place?" Ayanna shook her head. "I have not gone there in years." "Why not?" She looked away, her expression clouding slightly. "Life changed. I had responsibilities, and after a while, it felt strange to go alone." Samuel nodded slowly. "Would you show me the place sometime?" Ayanna hesitated. The idea felt personal. That hill had been a place of comfort during her childhood, and later a place of sadness she avoided. But something in Samuel's voice made the idea feel safe. "Maybe," she whispered. Samuel smiled softly. "Only if you want to." They finished spreading the herbs and walked back down the hill together. The path curved gently toward the settlement, lined with desert flowers and small patches of grass. As they walked, Ayanna noticed that her steps felt lighter, as if the weight she had carried for years was beginning to loosen. Halfway down the path, a sudden gust of wind blew sand into the air. Ayanna lifted her hand to shield her face, but Samuel stepped closer and gently guided her to the side of a large rock for shelter. The wind roared for a few moments, swirling dust around them, and then passed as quickly as it came. Ayanna looked up at Samuel, surprised by his protective instinct. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. He smiled. I know, but I wanted to. Their eyes met again, and for a moment the world felt still. Something deep inside Ayanna shifted, something she thought had died long ago. She didn't know what name to give it, but it filled her chest with warmth she hadn't felt in 20 years. As they walked back to the houses, Ayanna's mother noticed them from a distance. She smiled quietly, seeing her daughter's face softer than usual. She whispered a prayer of gratitude inside her heart, hoping this gentle change would continue. Later that evening, as the sky darkened with hints of orange and purple, Samuel returned to Ayanna's home. He stood a respectful distance away and called lightly, "Ayanna?" She stepped outside, surprised to see him again so soon. "Is something wrong?" "No," he said with a warm chuckle. "I just wanted to bring you this." He handed her a small woven pouch. Inside were herbs he had gathered earlier, ones she normally collected but had forgotten about while working with him. "You left these on the hillside?" he explained. "I thought they might dry out too much if they stayed there overnight." Ayanna opened the pouch, touched by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you," she said in a soft voice. "You didn't have to walk all this way." "I didn't mind," he replied gently. "I wanted to see you again." Ayanna's breath caught slightly. She lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond, but inside, her heart fluttered like a small bird waking after a long sleep. Samuel stepped back respectfully. "Good night, Ayanna." She looked up and gave him a small, genuine smile. "Good night, Samuel." As he walked away, Ayanna watched him quietly. She felt her heart warming in a way she had never expected. She realized she wanted him to return, wanted to speak with him again, wanted to share more moments like today. For the first time in 20 years, Ayanna felt hope gently blooming inside her, soft, steady, and full of life. Ayanna woke before dawn the next several days, but her mornings felt different now. When she stepped outside her home, the sky seemed brighter, the air softer, and even her chores felt lighter. She told herself it was just the weather changing, but deep inside, she knew it wasn't the wind or the sun. It was Samuel. The quiet warmth he brought into her life had settled in her heart in a way she had not felt in 20 long years. She tried her best to stay calm, to keep her distance, to remind herself that he was only a traveler, someone who would soon leave. But no matter how hard she tried, her thoughts kept drifting back to him at unexpected moments. When she prepared herbs, when she fed the chickens, when she sat with her mother in the evenings. His gentle voice, his steady eyes, the way he listened to her stories, all of it stayed with her. One afternoon, Ayanna was cleaning the cooking hearth when she overheard two women talking nearby. They did not see her standing behind the corner. "Have you noticed how Samuel looks at Ayanna?" one woman whispered. The other laughed lightly. "Yes, but she is too guarded. She will push him away." "Or maybe she is afraid," the first woman replied. "Afraid of being left again." Ayanna's heart tightened. She stepped back quietly, not wanting to hear more. She told herself their words meant nothing. She had lived with whispers for years. But these whispers touched a place she kept hidden. They reminded her of all the fears she had buried deep inside her, fears she thought she had learned to live with. That evening, Ayanna climbed the small hill behind the settlement, the same hill she had not visited for years. She sat on the dry grass and watched the sky painted with soft orange and gold. The wind brushed her hair gently. She felt the beauty of the moment, but her heart was troubled. She knew something had begun between her and Samuel, something delicate, something real, and she knew she was terrified of losing it before it even had a chance to grow. Samuel noticed her absence that day. He kept looking for her while repairing fences and carrying supplies, but she was nowhere near her usual spots. When he asked her mother where she had gone, The elderly woman smiled gently. "She went to the hill," she said in a quiet voice, "a place she hasn't visited in many years." Samuel nodded, understanding more than words could explain. Later that night, Ayanna returned home with a heavy heart. She sat beside her mother and helped her prepare the evening meal, but she barely spoke. Her mother watched her carefully. "You are troubled," the old woman said softly. Ayanna lowered her eyes. "My heart is not steady." Her mother gently placed her wrinkled hand over her daughter's. "Is it because of Samuel?" Ayanna hesitated, then nodded. "I do not understand what is happening to me. I feel hope and fear. Both are rising inside me at the same time." Her mother smiled with wise tenderness. "Hope comes when someone touches the heart in a gentle way. Fear comes because you think you will lose him." Ayanna's voice shook. "I have been alone for so long. I do not know if I can let someone close and then watch him leave." Her mother squeezed her hand softly. "You are not the same girl you were 20 years ago. Your heart is stronger now. Maybe it is ready." Ayanna listened to her mother's words, but her fears did not disappear. The next day, Samuel finally found her near the river, washing a small basket. He approached slowly, noticing that her usual calm expression was clouded with worry. "Ayanna," he said softly, "I've been looking for you." She kept her eyes on the basket, avoiding his gaze. "I was busy." Samuel watched her carefully. "Did something happen?" "No," she answered too quickly. "Everything is fine." He didn't believe her, but he didn't push. Instead, he stepped closer. "Ayanna, if I said something to upset you, tell me. I don't want to cause you pain." She set the basket down and took a shaky breath. Her voice came out low. "It is not you. It is me. I do not know how to let someone near my heart without fear." Samuel nodded slowly. "I understand, but I don't want you to be afraid of me." She looked down at her hands. "You will leave soon. You are a traveler. You have a road to follow." Samuel took a long breath, feeling the weight of her words. "Yes, I plan to leave in a few weeks." The moment he said those words, Ayanna's heart felt as if something had cracked inside her. Even though she knew he would leave one day, hearing him say it made the fear real. She bit her lip, trying to keep her emotions steady, but her hands trembled slightly. Samuel noticed. He stepped closer. "Ayanna, does it trouble you that I will leave?" Ayanna closed her eyes for a moment. She felt her heart racing. She had spent 20 years holding her emotions tightly, keeping them hidden even from herself. But now everything inside her was breaking free. "Yes," she whispered finally. "It troubles me." Samuel felt a deep pull inside his chest. He wanted to reach for her hand, but he waited. Ayanna was not used to letting her heart speak. He could see how hard this moment was for her. She opened her eyes slowly, and tears shimmered at the edge of her lashes, not from sadness alone, but from the fear of losing something precious just as she had found it. "I cannot pretend any more," she said in a trembling voice. "I do not want to live alone for the rest of my life. I do not want you to walk away and leave me with silence again. I thought my heart died years ago, but it woke up because of you." Samuel felt his breath grow unsteady. He had sensed her feelings before, but hearing them in her own voice shook him deeply. Ayanna took one small step closer, her tears finally falling. "I am not young anymore. I have been untouched by a man for so long. 20 years of silence. I thought no one would ever choose me. But when I look at you," her voice broke, "I feel hope again. And it frightens me." Samuel felt a powerful ache in his heart. He could not let her stand there suffering. He reached out gently and took her hands in his, hands she had kept guarded for half her life. "Ayanna," he said softly, "you are not alone. Not anymore." Her tears fell more freely now. She inhaled shakily and whispered the words she never thought she would say to anyone again. "If you choose to stay, if your heart wants me, then make me your wife." Her confession was raw, trembling, filled with 20 years of quiet longing. She stood before him not as a woman begging for love, but as someone finally allowing herself to feel. Samuel felt his heart pounding with emotion. He didn't answer immediately, not because he was unsure, but because her words deserved more than a quick reply. He stepped closer, his hands still holding hers gently, and spoke with deep sincerity. "Ayanna, your heart is not broken. It is strong, and I will never disrespect the trust you have shown me today." He pulled her into a gentle embrace, not tight, not rushed, just enough to let her feel safe. Ayanna closed her eyes, letting herself be held for the first time in 20 years. She felt warmth spread through her chest, melting the fear she had carried for so long. Samuel whispered softly, "You deserve love that stays, and I want to give you that." Ayanna rested her head against him, her tears drying slowly. She knew her life had changed forever in that moment. Her silence had finally ended. Ayanna could hardly sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the wooden ceiling of her small home, her heart filled with emotions she had not felt in 20 years. She replayed Samuel's gentle words again and again. He had not rejected her, had not stepped away, had not treated her confession as something strange or unwanted. Instead, he held her with a calm strength that made her feel safe in a way she had almost forgotten was possible. The memory of his arms around her, warm and steady, stayed with her like a comforting flame in the darkness. Her mother watched her quietly from the other room. Even without words, the old woman sensed something had changed in her daughter. She saw the softness in Ayanna's eyes, the new warmth in her voice, the quiet glow she carried like a secret sunrise. The mother smiled to herself. After so many years of watching her daughter live in silence, she finally saw hope blooming like a small flower in the desert. Samuel did not sleep much either. He sat near the fire outside his small tent, staring at the glowing embers, his thoughts full of Ayanna. He had not expected his journey to bring him to a place or a person who would touch his heart so deeply. He had always lived a life of movement, never staying in one place too long, never letting his heart attach strongly. But now, for the first time, he felt a pull stronger than any road or horizon. He felt drawn to Ayanna with a sincerity he could not deny. When sunrise arrived, Ayanna stepped outside her home with a nervous breath. She wondered if Samuel would come, if he would still want to speak with her, if the words she had shared the day before had overwhelmed him. Her hands shook slightly, but she tried to stay steady. Moments later, she saw him walking toward her, calm, steady, and with a gentle purpose in his steps. Her heart eased the moment she saw his face. Samuel stopped a few feet from her and greeted her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Ayanna." She returned the smile softly. "Good morning." There was a quiet pause before Samuel spoke again. "Would you walk with me?" Ayanna nodded. Together, they walked beyond the houses, toward the gentle slopes that overlooked the plains. The early sunlight painted the land in gold, and the wind carried a soft hum over the hills. They walked slowly, neither rushing nor pushing the moment. Ayanna felt her heartbeat settle as they walked side by side. Samuel finally stopped at a place where the land opened into a wide view of the valley. He turned to her, his voice calm and sincere. "I thought a long time last night," he began, "about you, about your heart, about what you said." Ayanna's breath caught in her chest. She waited, unsure what would come next. Samuel continued, "You asked me to stay, and you asked me to make you my wife. Those are not small words. They carry weight. They carry trust." Ayanna lowered her eyes. "I know. I spoke with fear and hope together." He stepped closer and lifted her chin gently so she could meet his gaze. "Ayanna, everything you said touched me deeply. I do not want you to regret it, but I want you to know this clearly. I am not leaving. Not unless you want me to." Her eyes widened. "You will stay?" "Yes," he said softly. "I will stay, because my heart wants you too." Ayanna felt her breath grow unsteady. She had spent 2 decades believing her heart was closed forever, living only for duty and family. Now, hearing those words from Samuel felt like warmth spreading slowly through every part of her. She felt seen, wanted, and valued in a way she had never expected. She placed her hand gently over his heart. "I do not regret anything. Not one word." Samuel took her hands in his. "Then let us speak to your mother today, and your elders. I want to ask for you properly, with respect." Ayanna nodded slowly. Her eyes grew moist. But the tears were not from sadness this time. They were from relief, from gratitude, from the feeling that her long stretch of silence was finally giving way to a new beginning. Together they walked back to the settlement. People noticed them immediately. Walking closely, their expressions filled with quiet certainty. Whispers began to spread, but this time the whispers were not cruel or doubtful. They were curious, hopeful, even joyful. The settlement had watched Ayanna live in quiet sorrow for too long. Seeing her walk beside Samuel, with her eyes shining softly, made the elders smile. Ayanna's mother was sitting on the porch, waiting for them. Samuel approached her with deep respect. He bowed his head, then spoke in a steady voice. "I have come to ask for your blessing," he said. "I wish to marry your daughter. And I promise to honor her, care for her, and give her a peaceful and warm life." Ayanna stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly. Her mother looked at her with overflowing tenderness, then at Samuel with thoughtful eyes. She could see the sincerity in him. She could see the gentle way he held her daughter's feelings. And she could see the hope in Ayanna's face, hope she had not seen in 20 long years. The old woman nodded slowly. "My daughter has carried a heavy heart for a long time. If you can give her a new beginning, then you have my blessing." Ayanna let out a shaky breath of relief. Samuel bowed his head again. "Thank you. I will keep your trust." The news spread quickly through the settlement, and soon everyone gathered for a simple ceremony. No grand decorations, no loud celebrations, just a circle of warm smiles, soft prayers, and peaceful joy. Samuel made a bracelet out of dried grass and small beads, offering it to Ayanna as a symbol of his promise. She accepted it with trembling hands, her eyes bright with quiet emotion. They stood together before the elders as the blessing was spoken. Ayanna's heart felt full, overflowing with warmth she never thought she would experience again. Samuel held her hands gently, steadying her as her emotions threatened to overwhelm her. When the ceremony ended, he kept her close, whispering softly so only she could hear. "You are not alone anymore. Not ever again." Ayanna rested her head against his shoulder, feeling safe, cherished, and deeply loved. The settlement cheered softly around them, proud to witness her long journey from silence to hope. That night, the two of them walked to the hill where Ayanna once sat alone. But this time, she wasn't alone. The moon rose gently above them as Samuel wrapped a warm shawl around her shoulders. They sat together, watching the soft glow of the night, feeling the peace of the land settle around them. Ayanna held his hand tightly. "I waited so long," she whispered. Samuel looked at her with steady affection. And I am honored that your heart chose me." She smiled, a smile filled with 20 years of unspoken wishes finally finding light. She leaned her head gently against him, and Samuel placed his arm around her. For the first time in 2 decades, Ayanna felt whole. She felt chosen. She felt alive. Her long years of silence had finally ended, not with sorrow, but with a new beginning she never thought she would have.